Hello everyone, I'm Tommy with StudioScents. This is a tag video answer to the question that was posed by Ashton. I don't know actually who originally posed it, but Ashton grabbed it from Gents Scents, carried the torch, and now handed it off to me and some others. So I'm doing my duty by answering this. What I would do with $250 as a beginner in the world of fragrances. So I'd like to give a shout out and also send a tag their way to Frags to Riches, the Centurion, and the Stylish Irishman. So if you guys want to take up the banner, grab the torch, or whatever analogy or phrase you want to use, take it away with what you would do and your take on spending $250 if you were a beginner. That is quite a hefty question. You think, oh yeah, sure, that's easy, I can do that. But when you start looking into all the fragrances that have come out, the thousands that have come out over the years, it's really hard to pick some favorites, especially when you're trying to be subjective in terms of, am I picking this out for someone else who's just getting started, or has this got some kind of nostalgic connection or value to me and me alone? So that was really hard to do. But it was a great assignment. I was happy to be involved. And tonight I'm going to give you my top 10 fragrances. And yes, they are unfortunately all designer. It's really hard to find a niche fragrance. I came really close with one of them, and that's one of my honorable mentions, and I'll mention that in a moment. What got me interested is, and I think almost everyone, maybe yourself included, who has gotten into either collecting fragrances or watching reviews, doing a little bit of research before actually just going out and blind buying something, is that there's some connection in the past where, whether you were growing up or you began as a teenager or maybe into adulthood, where you had some association with a fragrance or maybe even a fragrance community, or you came from a household where it was really important to wear certain fragrances. Maybe your father or your mother, your parents, or one of your notable relatives had a signature scent. And that's how you got into it. So I think this is a really good question, is how I would spend $250 just getting started. My honorable mentions tonight, as I mentioned, there is a designer fragrance that is almost, so close to being niche worthy in terms of its quality. I did give a review of it, and that is 24 Gold by Sensory. 24 Gold, what can you say about it? It is just a really great quality oud-based fragrance, and it's one of those ouds that's not challenging. You smell it, you immediately like it, or immediately don't. If you don't like that kind of, a little bit darker, more incense-based fragrance, that's completely understandable. But 24 Gold rides that line beautifully and set itself in a position to be added to this list. However, it's gone up quite a bit in price. It's a little hard to find it for less than $50, $55. Another honorable mention is Drakkar Noir, just because it was such a banger years ago, and I don't know anyone who has ever worn a fragrance that doesn't know about Drakkar Noir. So would I tell someone just getting started to purchase it? Probably not, just because they probably had it or been around it before, and so they're already going to be familiar with this very, very classic fragrance. So those are my honorable mentions. Let's go ahead and get right on into my list of what I would purchase if I had $250 as a beginner. Now I do want to say that I try to include a little bit of everything that best represents the genre now. But again, all of these are going to be designer, and another thing that will stand true is they're all going to be 50 ml. Now there are some exceptions. I maybe have 3 or 4 exceptions where they're 100 ml bottle. But one of the things that I caution people getting started out collecting fragrances or just buying fragrances for themselves is getting a huge bottle before you really know what it smells like. So my very first fragrance that I would purchase is going to be Armaf's Club de Nuit Man. In the top of Club de Nuit Man, you've got lemon, blackcurrant, bergamot, pineapple, and apple in the top notes. In the mid, you've got rose, jasmine, and birch. And finally, in the bottom notes, you've got vanilla, ambroxan, or ambergris, or ambroxan, and musk, and you've got your woody notes as well. I did want to, for this quote-unquote person who's getting started, I did want to get some clones for them, because they're going to want to get some fragrances that are going to get some notice, right? So they want to turn heads, they want to get compliments or comments. The clones are the way to go without breaking the pocketbook or breaking the bank or the wallet. It's just a great example. It is an Aventus clone, and of course it smells so good, and it is in some ways, I think, even better. Club de Nuit Man has a really good birchy backbone, like a great woodsy scent too. So you've got that juxtaposition between the citrus opening and then the woodsy notes at the base. And it's just a great start to add to your collection, and that's why it's my number 1. Taking the number 2 spot is also from the house of Armaf, and that is Ventana Pour Homme. Now this is going to be another clone of Dior Sauvage. Armaf Ventana Pour Homme features in the top notes a very fruitsy grapefruit, lemon, and mandarin orange. Middle notes, you've got a floral basket with lavender, geranium, vetiver, and patchouli. The base features cedar, amber, and woodsy notes. Armaf Ventana Pour Homme is going to have a really nice crisp opening, and it's going to give you that fresh, clean, kind of powdery feel that Dior Sauvage does without, again, breaking the bank. And it is really kind of hard to find. Most websites that you go to are sold out. The example that you're going to see at the very end of my list actually comes from Amazon. So fragrance.net, perfume.com, sold out and out of stock of Ventana. So if you can't afford the original, which in this case I'm not recommending purchasing the original, this is a very, very close clone of Dior Sauvage. It's also being compared to Versace Dylan Blue without the longevity. Now, one thing I want to mention too, not all of these are going to have fantastic longevity. We're not necessarily getting started. We're not necessarily looking for the best sillage, the best longevity. We're looking for a generally good start of a representation of everything that's good that's out there. And that's kind of what I was trying to go for here. So number 3 for me is going to be Coach for Men. This is a great classic fragrance. From the open to the mid to the dry down, there's absolutely nothing about Coach that I don't like. I still wear it on a semi-daily basis. It's really hard for me not to reach for Coach every single day, but because of the great price point, been around since 2017, it has to make my list. So it's going to be something that everyone can, this beginner can wear pretty much anywhere. Coach for Men in the top, it has kumquat. It's got green nashi pear, and these two you don't really see together, especially in top notes together, but it also combines bergamot. In the mid, cardamom, coriander, and geranium, and in the base you have a really nice woodsy leather feel with vetiver, suede, and ambroxan. My number 4 pick came out in 2006, and that is Prada Amber for Men. Prada Amber comes together at the top with, you've got mandarin orange, you've got bergamot, you've got neroli, and finally cardamom. And in the middle notes, more orange with orange blossom, you've got musk, you've got myrrh, you've got vetiver, and you've got a little bit of floral geranium. In the base, it features labdanum leather, sandalwood, tonka, patchouli, vanilla, and saffron. Prada Amber has been described as being like a luxurious hotel soap. It has such a fresh, clean, soapy, sudsy smell to it. It's one of those that I just want to grab and just keep my nose right on the atomizer and just... So you never get tired of certain smells, but this particular fragrance, just how clean and fresh that it is, it made my list just because of that. Like, you know, when you're traveling somewhere, they like make a swan or some kind of huge, crazy, you know, sculpture of David or whatever out of a washcloth, and that soap's down inside of it. That's what it smells like. It has a really nice fresh opening, but when it dries down is when it really comes to life and breathes life into the best notes. Prada Amber is very smooth yet subtle. As a starter fragrance, it has a really nice sillage and great longevity. At my number 5 spot, might be a surprise to you, it came out in 2016. Yes, 2016. And it is Abercrombie Fitch, No Not Fierce, but a cousin of it, and that is First Instinct. First Instinct has kind of an unusual beginning. It opens with a gin and tonic that's mixed with this Kawano melon. So you have this like a fizzy, effervescent melon note. And at first you're like, what is that? And then it begins blending and drying down into the mid. Spicy Szechuan pepper. You've got your violet leaf that starts coming out. Then you have your citrus as well. So you've got like a tangy, spicy softness. It's almost like the best of 3 worlds mixed into one mid. As you can tell, I really like First Instinct. It's wrapped by bottom notes of a musky suede and raw amber. It's one of those all-time favorite casual wear fragrances that just makes you feel good to smell. Like if you're having a bad day, grab First Instinct, take a huff of it, and all of a sudden you start thinking positively. Thinking about blue jeans, t-shirts, sunshiny days, and what you're gonna do on vacation, falling in love, all those fun things that we miss out on because of the daily, day-to-day rote. It gets you out of that rote mindset. So First Instinct is a great fragrance by Abercrombie & Fitch, and I think it's an underappreciated fragrance that doesn't get talked about in the community that much. And that's again why it made my list. First Instinct is a fougere, and it's got some spicy notes. It has a melon note in it. It's got spicy Szechuan pepper. As with so many fragrances, what the designer had in mind by creating First Instinct is a man that's not afraid to be in touch with his feelings and express those emotions openly. I really agree with the idea behind First Instinct because it works so well. Especially the first time you experience it and the first time you wear it, you really fall in love with it. That's one of my favorite classic casual wear fragrances. Taking up my number 6 spot, came out in 2017. It is Givenchy Gentlemen for men. Givenchy Gentlemen has as a top note, primary notes of pear, and cardamom. And in the middle note, iris and lavender, and as base notes, patchouli, leather, and black vanilla. With this list, I wanted to get kind of a collection of fragrances that highlighted certain notes. You know, there are certain fragrances that always seem to have this note in it, this note in it. They can kind of get generic or bland, but I wanted to try to highlight certain specific notes. The primary reason that I chose Givenchy Gentlemen is for the pear note. Now, a lot of people might take issue with this because they don't really like the kind of the sharp, semi-bitter opening, but right after the opening is really where the pear note comes into focus, and it becomes a really nice, enjoyable fragrance that makes you feel fresh and clean, but also has an unusual, kind of a quirky feeling to it. Givenchy Gentlemen kind of rattles the cage a little bit and gives you that sense of being different, being set aside without feeling like an outsider. Taking up my number 7 spot, came out in 2012. It is Vince Camuto Man. The reason that I wanted the Vince Camuto Man on this list is because it really has a sensuous, deep, expressive, luxurious leather note. Vince Camuto Man comes to the fore at the very top notes with Italian bergamot, mandarin orange, and black pepper. In the mid, Vince Camuto comes out with lavender, nutmeg, and leather. Then in the base, you have woodsy notes, patchouli, woodsy notes, and a vetiver musk. It's going to be a fall weather, so going from middle warm into colder weather, so it'll carry you through those darker months. And the dark leather and the peppers dominate those notes from the mid to the dry down and just make it a really enjoyable fragrance to have on hand when you're in the mood. So Vince Camuto Man is more of like a mood fragrance to me for someone starting out, and that's why it made my list. Taking up my number 8 spot is another fougere. It is a herbal, very crisp fragrance to it, and that is Calvin Klein Truth. Calvin Klein Truth has been around for a pretty long time, 2002. Calvin Klein Truth has cardamom, green leaves, and basil as top notes. As middle note, it has fern along with some binding resins that bring it together. And then in the bottom, it's got red cedar along with some other woodsy notes, some exotic woods, and of course patchouli to bring them together. To me, Calvin Klein Truth integrates the idea that in order to know where we're going to go, or where we want to go rather, especially in the world of fragrance, it's very important to see where we've been. Now, it's a great year-round fragrance, I think, but it's best utilized in summer and summer weather. And that's why it made my list for number 8, Calvin Klein Truth. Taking up my number 9 spot is Mont Blanc Emblem. Emblem came out in 2014. Mont Blanc Emblem starts out with clary sage, grapefruit, cardamom. In the mid, we have cinnamon and violet leaf. And in the base, we have woodsy notes and tonka bean. I don't know why I'm doing this. The reason that it made my list is because I really like violet as a note and when it's done really well. And I love the way Mont Blanc Emblem highlights that violet note. So it's there in the opening, you still have it captured in its essence in the mid, but where it really comes to life and gets to spread its wings, as it were, or spread its petals, as it were, is in the dry down. You really have that soft vibe from the violet, and that's why it made my number 9 spot for a beginner, because it's a great representation of that great note of violet. It seems to take several notes that might suffer from dichotomy and it blends them really well together. So you've got the violet, you've got cinnamon, and you've got cardamom, three of which might seem like it would create a discord, but they're used really, really well and to great effect in Emblem. So you get essences of, when I wear Emblem, I smell each note by itself at different times as I'm wearing them, but sometimes I happen to catch them blended like in a row, and I catch all of them and I can sense all of them. It's one of those semi-layered, semi-complex fragrances that you can really just sit and appreciate just like you would a great cup of coffee. Speaking of coffee, that brings me to my number 10 spot, Rajaman. 1999 is when this fine fragrance came out. Only two top notes in Rajaman, and that is lavender and bergamot. In the middle, we've got lily of the valley, we've got jasmine, Virginia cedar, but it has a nice sweet tart little raspberry note to go right along with your cappuccino and your coffee. Not only do you have that sweet, sort of milky, austere coffee note, but you also have a sweet raspberry in the mid, and it dries on down with some base notes, sandalwood, patchouli, amber, and of course vanilla. So it is a gourmand-like fragrance that every man should have, and especially a beginner should have, especially at the price point that it's priced at now. It off-put a lot of people because of the cappuccino, the fragrance, the coffee fragrances in it. The same number of people that were off-put by that note were also completely bought in because of the same note. So you either love or hate coffee. I don't know anyone that actually hates it. It's an amazing flavor, it's an amazing aroma when used correctly in fragrances. It was used to such great effect in Rajaman. One of the nice things I think about Rajaman is, and I did want to try to come up with at least one or two fragrances that Truth, First Instinct, and Rajaman I think are the closest to a unisex fragrance without actually being released as such. But to me, there is no particular gender associated with Rajaman, even though it is a man's fragrance. But that coffee note, so you've got the bergamot, you've got the nice lavender in the opening draws you in, and you're left with that very milky, sweet cappuccino coffee flavor in the dry down. That's what makes it such a good combination, blended fragrance, and that's also why it made number 10 on my list. Now, how did I do when it came to tallying all of these fragrances? There are 10 fragrances. Armaf's Club de Nuit Man was a 100 ml bottle. Also, Armaf Ventana Pour Homme was also a 100 ml bottle. Calvin Klein's Truth was a 100 ml bottle, and then Mont Blanc Emblem was a 75 ml bottle. Everything else was 50 mils. I'm really happy with my results. So it was almost $243. So I had a few dollars left, and I really tried to get close to the 250. I think Ashton with Gents Scents, he was just 1 cent off. So that was pretty cool, but I didn't quite get that close, but I thought I did pretty well. And I think that's a really good, well-rounded list for the first 10 fragrances that you would own if you were a beginner and you had the money, or you won that shopping spree on fragrance.net that's being advertised too. So that would be a great way to take advantage of that. Well, that's it for my list. Thank you so much for stopping by on my channel. If this is the first video you're watching, thank you so much for being here. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you know when the next video is going to drop. And also leave your comments of what you thought. And for everyone else that's been sticking with me, thank you so much for your support. I'm Tommy with StudioScents, and I'll see you next time.